One of my favorite pastimes is admiring men in their natural habitat. The way they move, walk, and talk. I try not to be obvious. I like to be incognito. Do men notice this? If you do, how does it make you feel? Story 1. I will let you know when it happens. Once, a car full of girls drove by, and one leaned out the window and yelled, "You were hot at me." I will always remember that. Story 2. I either do not notice or women are not checking me out. Be less subtle. I would love it. I have always felt pretty invisible to women. Story 3. It is tiresome getting all this attention and being objectified every time I walk outside. Said no man ever. Story 4. You are overestimating the observational awareness of men in this regard. We will notice a potential threat at 50 yards, but would not be able to acknowledge a pretty woman checking us out if she jumped out of a bush and yelled Yahtzee. Story 5. One time in college, the woman working the checkout told me I looked radiant. Men do not usually hear that kind of thing. Being complimented by a stranger at the grocery store gave me a confidence boost for 15 years so far. Story 6. Men do not even know half the time when a woman is trying to kiss them, so do you think we notice a woman checking us out? Most men probably assume you are glaring at them because they are looking at you. How else would they notice you are checking them out? Story 7. Honestly, a lot of the time I think I'm unaware of it. Women are pretty sneaky when they are checking guys out. But sometimes you just know when you turn your head and a woman nearby immediately looks away before you've even finished turning your head. I catch women looking at my bulge pretty often, though. I do pack and I wear gym shorts or sweatpants frequently. I think they assume that because it is lower down, we won't notice the staring when their eyes are downcast and partly hidden by eyelids, eyelashes, or sunglasses. But yeah, you are nothing like the way guys stare, especially older men. The way an older man will just stare like a dead fish for 20 seconds straight at a girl old enough to be his granddaughter is very gross. Story 8. I feel like men forget that they are amazing. I am currently at my favorite coffee shop, and the variety of interesting men coming in and out is pretty awesome. Hence the post. Story 9. A woman once looked me up and down with very admiring eyes. Felt great and was very flattering. Story 10. I have 2 stories that sum up how unaware we are. I was at a bar in Texas with some friends. A woman came up and said she was visiting her friend there from Canada. She told me she wanted to go to a cowboy bar, but she was leaving the next morning. I gave her directions to Cowboys. She asked, "What if I get lost?" I told her it was impossible to miss and that it would be on Google Maps if she needed help. My friends were dumbfounded and speechless. The second story. I was in Target with my best friend, who told me afterward that a woman was checking me out so intensely, she crashed into an end cap display. Meanwhile, I know if my kids touched my tools because they will be 1 millimeter off where I put them. Story 11. Most of us are totally oblivious because it rarely happens. But when it is noticed, usually there are 2 stages. Stage 1. It feels like you are the butt of a joke. Like, damn, I get it. I'm not that attractive, but now you are going to be sarcastic. Stage 2. It clicks and you realize it is coming from an honest place of attraction. Then you wear that feeling like a badge of honor for the rest of the year, with your head high and chest out. Throughout the year, your brain thinks, remember that time you caught her checking you out? For real, any type of compliment or genuine attraction shown will have a man walking on sunshine. Story 12. Never really happened except for the woman twice my age who went on and on about how soft my skin looked. I guess I would have been flattered if I were interested in being made into a lampshade. Story 13. Lost a lot of weight, and it is nice when women notice me. It is even better when you receive a booty call. Story 14. It is great. The problem is, it never happened when I was single. Now I am in a relationship and having a child, and all of a sudden these girls start to notice me, so it can be difficult at times. Story 15. Great. Many cisgender heterosexual men do not have experiences of feeling objectified or desired, so it stands out when it happens. Story 16. If a woman I did not know ever looked at me with anything other than outright terror in her eyes, I would be simultaneously flattered and confused. I am the background character. I am not even noticed by friends or family sometimes. It is useful but also sometimes discouraging. I am also nothing special in the looks department. 6 feet 3 inches tall, bald, bearded, 140 to 145 pounds soaking wet, with heavy brows, a guarded demeanor, and a resting serious expression. I clean up well enough but am definitely nothing to look at with more than mild curiosity sometimes. Story 17. If a woman actually did this to me, I would never forget it as long as I live. Do not think people realize how little external validation many men receive. Something like this would genuinely make their day and probably more. Story 18. I have never perceived this to happen, although my spouse has stated that it has. They probably thought I was glaring at them or mistaken for someone who had wronged them. Story 19. I cannot say that it has happened often, or at least I have not noticed it, but when it does, it feels nice. As is often lamented, men do not receive compliments often, so when we think someone is checking us out or admiring us, it tends to feel good. It is nice to feel like someone finds you attractive. Story 20. Never been checked out, so I don't know. I would immediately think something was wrong because I highly doubt a woman would check me out in a positive way. While it would feel good, I would be skeptical. I am just not a good-looking man. Story 21. One of my best memories is of a gorgeous woman walking into a pole while she was checking me out. It was when I was at my fittest. It was a long time ago. Story 22. 95% of the time, I most likely do not notice it. I have really poor self-esteem. I am working on it in therapy, but I noticed it the other day, and honestly, it made my day. It made me feel good. Story 23. I was checked out once, which was really obvious, right when leaving after a date with my current girlfriend. She looked me up and down a few times. She did not frown or show any similar expression. Rather, it seemed more like a smirk. I felt objectively pretty and hot. Story 24. Women out in the wild? I am pretty oblivious to it. I definitely spot my wife looking at me from the kitchen window when I am out mowing the lawn with my shirt off though. Story 25. I was at a party in my mid-20s, one of my last celebrations. All of us were pretty drunk. In a brief moment of clarity, my friend grabbed me and said we needed to get this girl into a bed because she was very intoxicated and probably not safe to be crawling around a party of 30 people. I recognized her right away as someone I went to school with. We picked her up and put her in a closed room with the door shut for easy monitoring. As I was walking out, I heard her talk to my friend. Was that original poster? He's beautiful. I have lived that high ever since. Story 26. I never notice because if I see someone looking at me, they are probably looking at something else since people do not check me out and I move on. So it does not affect me. I imagine if I knew they were looking at me, I would love it. I was catcalled once in high school. I am 30 now, and it still makes me feel good thinking about it. Story 27. It's annoying. They need to stop being creeps. I assume any woman who looks in my general direction is checking me out. Story 28. Don't be subtle. Take a look from head to toe. I notice, but I've had it drilled into my head by discouragers over recent years to never assume interest. Lately, I am trying to see things more through my own instincts, and girls actually check me out quite a bit. I am handsome. Story 29. I am not very smart, so I might mistake you just looking in my general direction for actually looking at me. Story 30. If a woman turns her head up and away from her phone to look at my face, then quickly looks back at her phone when I make eye contact with her, does that count? Story 31. I am guessing this is exactly the same for women, and you are not going to like the answer. If I think that she is cute, then it is all good. Stare all you like. If I do not find that particular woman checking me out attractive, then it is creepy, and I would rather you stop. It is that whole thing where two men can walk up to a woman and say the exact same line. One will succeed, and the other might have the police called on him. Think George Clooney versus Harvey Weinstein. So basically, it is all about how attractive the person doing it is. Story 32. Indifferent to being checked. I will tell you how it felt to be approached though, for friendship not romance. That felt nice. Story 33. Can you give some pointers on how to recognize a woman checking out a man? The only times I have noticed it were when they clearly said something or were giggling at the most boring jokes. By the time I figure out a woman likes me, we are either already kissing or it is 5 years later, and I am randomly thinking about the situation. Story 34. I'm sure it has happened before, but I have never noticed it. It is probably rare, and to be honest, if people look at me a lot, it makes me aggressive, which shows on my face. Story 35. If I see them looking as they pass by, I wonder if there is something on my face. However, I know I randomly look at people too, so I assume they are just looking and move on. If it is obvious, I assume it is some sort of joke and move on. Either way, you cannot be too careful these days, so unless I am stopped and spoken to, I probably will not feel much and will move on. Story 36. It depends. Sometimes girls flirt by staring at you until you become uncomfortable and go talk to her. It feels like when a baby will not stop staring at you while you are in line at Walmart. Story 37. Does not matter. When men can control OnlyFans and women are the customers. Call me. Right now, it looks like men are appealing to other men, and women are appealing to other men. Story 38. Do women check men out? Are you serious? And if women do check men out, why do you dislike yourself so much? Story 39. I probably have food on my face and will nervously wipe my mouth, chin, and cheeks every few minutes until I get home. Story 40. When a woman looks me up and down, I always worry that my zipper is open. Honestly, other than that, it is a non-event for me. Story 41. As someone who didn't have much attention until after my 30s, and also when I got bald, I started to take care of myself with kickboxing and going to the gym. I love it. My girlfriend also loves it because she feels, yeah, you can watch, but I am the one who can touch. Story 42. Back in my 20s, when I was in good shape and it happened quite often, I loved it. I felt like I had really earned it by getting in shape. That was when I noticed it. According to a few friends, it happened several times without my awareness. Story 43. I'll tell you when it happened. I'm more the he isn't my type, but somehow he charmed me kind of guy. Women usually come up with excuses for why they hooked up with me. Story 44. I stayed with my friend last night. She is going on a cruise next week and was packing. She asked me to help her pick out dresses, and I couldn't help but check her out a little, which made me feel a bit bad because we are mostly platonic. However, she was looking at me very attentively last night when I was in my underwear getting ready for bed. Story 45. Sometimes I notice it. It feels strange to be objectified because I haven't experienced it my whole life, or at least I haven't noticed it before. If I tell myself they are looking at me positively, it feels good and makes me smile a bit. If I'm in a down mood, I tend to think they see me as strange, which makes me feel embarrassed or bad. I then try to straighten my posture and look the other way while attempting to leave the situation. I would much prefer a woman to approach me and give me a compliment about something she notices or even tell me I look unattractive to her, rather than just being stared at or having her hope I meet her gaze to share a smile. Story 46. Oh, we notice. It happens to me regularly. It feels pretty good unless my wife sees it too. Then I'm usually either in a little bit of trouble or she starts hanging on me. Story 47. I have taken to complimenting random men sincerely. I told a man in the grocery store the other day that he looked really sharp in his flannel, which he did. He beamed. It was lovely. Story 48. Never had the opportunity. A woman did check me out once, but I was in a bad neighborhood. So I got out of there quickly. Story 49. Half of me recognizes what is happening. The other half wonders what you hope to achieve by paying attention to me. To put it simply, my reaction is, weird. Anyway, story 50. I literally just had a random woman wave at me after doing a double take while I was taking out the trash. I do not know if I was being checked out, but it made my day so much better. Story 51. Wouldn't that depend on the way you are observing them as well? Are you subtly looking or are you staring? Story 52. When it happens to me in my life, I usually end up having a child with the woman. For example, I have had at least 3 women tell me on the very first sexual encounter, I wanted you from the first minute I saw you. while we were together. This made me ensure she was satisfied with every moment of lovemaking. The woman I stayed with long-term told me she wanted to have a baby and wanted me to impregnate her. I did not hesitate. It depends on where women are in life, I suppose. Story 53. I like it. I often notice women looking at me, but of course it is hard to know for sure if they are actually interested or just happen to have their face pointed in my direction. Story 54. Nowadays, it makes me feel self-conscious because I am not in shape. When I still worked out, it felt great when a woman did that. Some would stare at my arms, and I caught a few looking at my butt in reflective surfaces. However, I do not get mad since I do it with them too, although I try not to do it too much or too obviously. Story 55. Yes. I was checked out and asked to go home with her a couple of months ago. I kindly declined but have been riding that high since then. Story 56. I'm sure I don't notice when women do it discreetly, but, as a rather handsome man, I do notice when women notice me. This generally happens the instant they see me, even when they are prepared to hide it. I get a lot of double takes, a look and then look away, or sustained eye contact and a smile. I think I know all the looks by now. Sure, it feels good, but it doesn't amount to much as a married man. Story 57. I wish I could catch women staring at me. I am in a relationship and I would never do anything to jeopardize that, but I have never been cool or popular, so the validation is nice every once in a while. Story 58. It's amazing, but I am kind of seeking attention. Seriously though, I do not work out at the gym 6 days a week to be ignored. Story 59. I am married, so it does not really matter to me. Also, there is never enough time in a day, so I am usually too busy to notice or care. Story 60. Uncomfortable sometimes. I took my nieces to a park to play while I was waiting for my spouse to finish work. All the mothers gave me intense looks and kept asking for my phone number, saying their child wanted to set up a playdate with my nieces, who were only in town this one time, and I could text them if they were ever in town again. It was very pushy and somewhat flattering, but I am glad I do not have children of my own. Story 61. I cannot tell you how much I love being objectified. Feels absolutely fantastic. I have heard women talk about me like I am a piece of meat, and it is like yes. Story 62. One time, some neighborhood ladies were staring at me when I was coming back from the gym. They made it obvious and did not try to hide it. They were making seductive eye contact. I felt very uncomfortable. Story 63. I've noticed a few girls looking at me in the past, and I'm not sure how to respond. Sometimes, it's subtle. I catch their eyes following me when I'm walking around. Other times, a girl and I walk past each other. And as she walks in my direction, I notice her eyes moving from my shoes to my face. I'm not sure how to react. Sometimes, I'm at work or talking to a friend when it happens. I still feel awkward if I go over just because she looked at me. Other times, I'm talking to someone or standing somewhere, and I check my surroundings. For some reason, I trace someone's eyes and catch their gaze. I usually just smile back and wave, but I wonder what I should do. I feel good, but I also think, why doesn't she say something? Or now she's being shy after staring like that. Story 64. I'm flattered. It seems that now that I've reached my mid-60s, I still look great. Women really pay more attention to me. All age groups from late 20s to late 70s. Some get pretty forward, which can be off-putting, but the following eyes when I cross the room or catching a lady staring, then a brief, sometimes not so brief, locking of eyes is very fun. Keep it up. Most men will be flattered and not take it as more than you mean it. Story 65. I am as blind as a bat when it comes to a woman flirting with me or looking at me in an interested way. My ex got very jealous when someone was looking at me like that, but I genuinely never noticed. I have been single for 2 years now and still do not notice it. Story 66. Be obvious about it if you like. When I was a teenager, I visited a rival high school to take part in a joint project. I had my first experience with being catcalled and loved every second of it. Story 67. I love it. I am still riding the high from an uninvited compliment 25 years ago. Check me out, objectify me all you want. Bring it on. Story 68. I am not sure. I did not realize when a woman was flirting with me until I received her phone number. Even then, I probably thought she just wanted to meet up later. Story 69. I like to give random compliments simply because I feel men do not receive them enough. You have lovely eyes always seems to be a favorite. Story 70. Self-conscious. If she is looking at me, there is a good chance I have a booger hanging out of my nose, my fly is open, or some other embarrassing thing that would draw attention. Story 71. A woman looks at me. She must be afraid, annoyed, wants to scam me, thinks she knows me from somewhere, does not like my skin color, or just loves staring at people. Story 72. We do not notice it at all unless you walk up to us and say something. If I ever received a random compliment from a woman, I would ride that confidence boost for months, maybe years. Story 73. About 10 years ago, my wife caught a girl staring at but through my tight jeans at the checkout and gave her a look that probably embarrassed her. Once we got to the car, my wife told me what had happened. Well, let me tell you, my ego could be seen from space. I still wear tight jeans to this day. Story 74. Better than when men grab my butt, at least they usually just use their eyes. I have a big butt, and I cannot lie. Story 75. It's definitely something a lot of men aren't used to. Just the other day, I was running and in front of me were two girls walking in my direction. I moved out of the way and tried to just mind my business. I came across them again as it is a big mile loop, and I moved to the side again. This time, I looked just for a glance and noticed one of them looking at me, but I passed them quickly. I thought, that girl was looking at me? Not weirded out, but it would be nice if that was the case. Story 76. I don't like it when they are in a group and giggle while they are looking at me from a distance. That makes me feel very uneasy. Otherwise, it is just fun and it makes me feel good. Story 77. I am more likely to assume I am being judged than admired, honestly, and I am not even a particularly unattractive man. Story 78. I do not know. I think I speak for many men when I say we usually do not have a clue this is even happening unless you are blatantly obvious about it. Story 79. I am not concerned with how people see me to even notice, to be honest. I only really notice when my wife checks me out. She mentioned to me the other day how servers or bartenders flirt with me sometimes while ignoring her, and I did not even have a clue. I am just going down the road and living life. What others do is up to them. Story 80. Great. Feel free to look all you want, even whistle and catcall. Look, but do not touch. The one line is touching. It is very uncomfortable and unpleasant when a woman grabs or gropes me without permission. I am nearly 40 now and do not go to bars, but when I was younger, the number of women who thought it was perfectly acceptable to rub their hands on me was not enjoyable. Especially when I was dating someone and was not interested at all. Story 81. I feel most love it. I for one absolutely do. Please look and stare all you want. I like to feel admired and appreciated. Story 82. Like a lie. She is definitely not checking me out earnestly. It is somebody else or there is another reason. Story 83. At 25, I was oblivious. At nearly 50, I notice and feel a bit proud. It is good for morale. I certainly do not mind. I am happily married, so I always just let it lie and move on. Story 84. It makes me feel good. I am getting older and I am not as youthful looking as I once was. Receiving a compliment or getting some attention on a post I shared on Reddit makes me feel very good. Story 85. I don't usually notice, but when I do, I really like it. It makes me feel good. I don't assume that someone sees me as a mere object without depth or as anything less than a full human being. That view is just strange. I like it because it shows they recognize my sexuality and my identity as a man. It makes me feel like a whole person and that they see that side of me, especially if they like it. Story 86. When I lived in China, when I was 18, the mother of one of my students asked me something like, "Ni shang he wo yi qi wan ma?" The word wan is usually translated as play, making me hear the sentence as, "Do you want to play with me?" She was twice my age and not my type, and I was kind of creeped out by how forward this was. Then she started mentioning that she would bring her friends to play with me too, and I very firmly refused her. I was still kind of flattered, even by the most forward and frankly inappropriate come on I have ever had. I later found out that in context, Juan is better translated as tour or hang out, more like going out on the town. This is far more appropriate, though still not an offer I was ready to accept. Does that answer the question? Story 87. I have never really noticed it happening. I think you all are much more observant about that kind of thing. I am a conventionally attractive man and have been on the receiving end of blatant come-ons and unprovoked physical advances, mostly from older women, and I am usually very flattered. Sometimes I feel a bit uncomfortable if I am not attracted to her and she is acting wild. Story 88. The only time that happened to me was when a very intoxicated woman decided she was attracted. Felt unpleasant and uncomfortable. I was not interested, and her becoming more physical by the minute was just sad. Story 89. As someone who went from being significantly overweight to being in relatively decent shape, when women check me out, I get uncomfortable, as if something is wrong with me or I have something on my face. I am still trying to get used to it, but in my mind, I will forever be that big guy who is shy. Story 90. They check me out? I assumed I was unattractive because I received no compliments or anyone acting flirtatious with me. Story 91. Sometimes I think I see women checking me out, but my first reaction is usually, I must be imagining things. Of course, I feel happy and flattered if it happens. Story 92. Honestly, I have rarely noticed women checking me out. I can remember maybe once when I was younger that I actually noticed at the time. I have had friends tell me someone was checking me out, but that is different. Granted, I think my immediate assumption when a woman is looking at me is that there is something wrong with my clothes or something, so that probably doesn't help. The one time I noticed was when a girl was extremely obvious and started flirting with me. This was back in high school, and I was in really good shape and shirtless in a swimsuit. Honestly, I wish I had been more confident back then because even when she was extremely obvious, I was second-guessing myself. Story 93. It depends on how it is done. Generally, I get uncomfortable with attention. I definitely get groped a lot without consent. Double standards are funny when you think about them. I just ask the person politely to stop, and they usually do. Story 94. I couldn't tell you because it has never happened, or I have never noticed if it has. However, I would love it even if it was someone I was not attracted to. If I got catcalled, it would probably make my year. Story 95. I was usually unaware and had to be told. Even in high school, some of us on the track team would run a bit, I would make a couple of vaults, then relax on the pole vault mats. I mentioned the girls sitting in the stands, and one of the guys called me a fool. He said two of them were watching me and he had overheard them talking about me in just my track shorts. My wife has laughed at me for years about women asking for help in the grocery store. I don't mind it, and probably most men don't, as long as they are not pushy or touchy. Story 96. I am fairly confident this has never happened to me. If it did, I would assume my clothes had a stain I was not aware of. Story 97. As an objectively unattractive man, this has never happened to me. I think if it did, I would assume my clothes had some stain I did not know about. Story 98. It very much depends on whether the checker is somebody who is attractive to me or not. If they are, I then look to see if they can establish nonverbal communication with me that shows mutual appreciation. If they handle that well, then it is good. If they cannot, then it is not. Story 99. I had a girl take my picture once without asking because she thought I was attractive. I may have posed. I wonder if she still has that Polaroid. Story 100. I usually assume they are creeped out if I accidentally make eye contact. I have had some compliment my hair or eyebrows though, and I remember those times fondly. Story 101. I would not notice. In the very unlikely scenario where I did, I would actually feel confident for once in my life. Story 102. For most men, it makes us feel good. That is why men struggle to understand that many women feel threatened or demeaned by the same in return. Story 103. If a woman has ever checked me out, I have never noticed. If a woman has ever checked me out, I wish I had noticed. Story 104. Sierra plays WWE Shawn Michaels theme song, Sexy boy. Story 105. Most men I have met do not mind being checked out. It is a natural part of human interaction, but some might appreciate a subtle acknowledgement. Story 106. I could not care less. I think it is just about how you go about it. There is checking someone out because they are attractive or you like their style, how they do things, and then there is checking them out in a predatory way. If someone is checking me out because they like my vibe or whatever, then great. Come over and chat, we might even get along. But if they are doing it in a purely hypersexual, predatory way, then please leave. Story 107. It depends on the woman. If it is someone aged 25 to 45, I am having a party in my head celebrating like I still have it. If it is an older woman in her 70s or 80s, I am still flattered but a little disappointed since there will be nothing more than that. Story 108. I don't notice it often, but when I do, my first thought is, I hope my wife also thinks I look good. She's the one I care about. Story 109. Don't you dare objectify us. We are more than our looks. We have a name and a personality. Just kidding. Please make it as obvious as possible, as often as possible. One time, I was wearing tight-fitted dress pants and a nice fitted button-up shirt. I saw a woman park her car and literally break her neck checking me out. I still gloat about this moment 10 years later. Story 110. I don't think many of the men on Reddit have ever been noticed by a woman. That group of men is not typically on Reddit. Story 111. I have only ever had 3 women show interest and make the first move. Every single time I fumbled because it is not what I am used to. I fumbled badly. Story 112. It makes me feel warm and gives me a boost of confidence. I am married, but I still like to be respectfully flattered. Story 113. I feel the same about it that women say they feel, and some things they show but won't actually say about men checking them out. As long as it is not creepy, I am fine with it and will often flirt back. The thing that always goes unsaid by women is that the less attractive they find the man to be, the less they are okay with being checked out. I know it is shallow to admit this, but I am just being real. I feel the same about women. The less attractive she is to me, the less I am okay with her checking me out. That said, I think I find more women attractive than the typical woman finds men attractive. I am ultimately more inclusive with whom I find attractive than most women seem to be. Story 114. When I was 27, 2 girls in a car next to me said, "Hey, you're cute. How old are you?" When I replied 27, they said, "Oh, never mind, you're too old." I felt really old in that moment. I am 44 now and wouldn't mind feeling old at 27 again. Story 115. I probably wouldn't notice. Even if I saw you watching me, I would likely assume that you think I'm weird or something rather than being sexually attracted to me. If you called out to me, I would probably find it funny. I don't really care whether others find me physically attractive, to be honest. I might be rather unusual in that respect. I suspect that attitude may be more common among men than women. I've never really had many girls chasing me, but I also never got the sense that people think I'm unattractive. Who knows, maybe if I were more desperate for romance and intimacy during the times I wasn't getting any, I would have ended up feeling like the ladies think I'm unattractive. Story 116. I definitely like it when I notice it. I tell my wife she better watch out because I am in high demand. Story 117. If I see some women looking at me, I then look at my pocket and stop myself from taking any further steps. Story 118. I suspect most men cannot tell when it happens. I also suspect that if the girl is not attractive, there is almost no chance they will notice. If a man notices an attractive woman checking him out, he will feel very confident. However, it is more likely that man gets checked out often, so he will not care as much. If the woman is attractive, there is almost zero chance she will check anyone out except maybe 1% of men, the same ones they pursue on dating apps. So there is a very low chance you will meet anyone you describe. In the rare case it happens to a man it never happens to, he will indeed feel very confident. Story 119. I feel so incredibly flattered. It's refreshing. There is a lady more than a decade older than me who always gushes about how cute I am, and it is such a big confidence boost. Story 120. If you smile at a man randomly, he will remember it for life. God forbid if you tell a man that he looks great or beautiful. He will make it a cherished memory and reflect on it almost every night. Story 121. It's a good feeling. I happened to lock eyes with a woman at work who was staring at me. She quickly looked away, then looked back and smiled at me about a week ago, and it stuck with me. I don't even know who she was, but it was enough to brighten my week. I'm not even certain that she was checking me out, probably just being friendly. It just felt nice to see someone look at me and smile so genuinely. It's been pretty rare since I entered my 30s and stopped going out as much. Story 122. I'm usually flattered. I recently had a woman closer to my son's age, around 30, go out of her way to talk to me. She was very nervous. I'm married, so I acted like I wasn't aware she was interested, but she definitely was. It was flattering. I'm almost 50, but I'm fit and look much younger. I mentioned this to friends and family and heard there is a viral trend of younger women pursuing older men because many young men are still living at home into their 30s. Has anyone heard of this? It wasn't her interest that surprised me. I experienced that occasionally. What surprised me was her likely age. Quite a lot. Story 123. The only thing I would love more than being admired all the time is sex. Sex is extremely high on my list of favorite things. Story 124. I notice it. I see everything more clearly, especially at 6 feet 3 inches. It is all good and fine until someone says something inappropriate. One of the main reasons I am very cautious about approaching women is that a few have come up to either feel my chest or arm, or ask, "Can I grab your butt?" I understand how women feel after having similar experiences with men. Admire all you want, ladies, but please be respectful. Story 125. I am fairly certain women do not check me out. However, if they did, then go for it. Objectify me completely. Story 126. You can check me out anytime you like. I don't mind. At my age, it gives me a bit of a boost. I like women of all ages as long as they are adults. Story 127. I like it a lot. I am assigned female at birth, transgender, female to male, and I have identified this way since I was 6 years old. Being seen and called cute or good-looking is amazing. I am pre-hormone replacement therapy, and I pass very well in my town. Story 128. Unless you are blatantly and unmistakably obvious, I probably will not even realize you are checking me out. If I did notice, I would probably be confused because I have never found myself to be attractive, but I certainly would not be offended. Story 129. Even if I notice a neutral or positive look from her, at first I won't think it is directed at me. I may think she is trying, mistakenly or not, to remember me from somewhere. I am not going to believe she even has a mild physical interest in me. If, in the very unlikely event, she actually approaches or says something, the best I can reasonably hope for is that she likes my shirt or jacket. More neutral, and what you seem to be describing, is just people watching with no goal, which is fine, but I really cannot see how it does anything for me. Much more likely is that she wants to either get something money, gift, item, or labor from me or sell me something. Story 130. If I notice anything, my honest first thought is that she sees something she doesn't like or that is bothering her but doesn't want to say anything. I would probably start to check myself or whatever I was doing to find the possible problem. If I didn't find anything obvious, I would likely block it from my mind. There is virtually no chance that I would think she was checking me out or that it was anything positive. Life and past experiences have taught me that it is best to assume the negative instead of getting your hopes up. You will be right more often than not. Story 131. I like being found attractive, sexy, and seen with "please desire me" eyes. I do not like feeling like I am being observed. There is a difference. The latter makes me self-conscious and like I am being judged. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.